So we're in the tour and Beis Yosef. We're going to finish it up today and go to the real Shulchan Aruch. I think I meant a message. I hope everybody will have one because there's a lot to see, really a lot to see in the Shulchan Aruch, a lot of interesting things there. And then I'm going to send out, hopefully for next time, a Tshuvas Chatam Sofer and a Pischei Tshuva. No, I'm sorry, there's a Pischei Tshuva that I'm going to have to send out because it's too little. It's too hard to read it inside. It's very tiny letters. And I did is I put it on a document so we'll be able to follow it on a bigger thing. Okay, so we're on Reish Lam. We're in the tour Beis Yosef, Reish Lamed Zion. We'll read the tour one more time just to get into it, but then we're not going to. We did the first Beis Yosef, and we'll skip already to the second Beis Yosef. And there's going to be a very important Darchei Moshe and a Prisha that we will need to see, because they're both referenced in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, Stuart, we haven't seen you for a while. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Okay, so we're in the tour, Choshen Mishpat Reish Lamed Zion. Choshen Mishpat Reish Lamed Zion. Give it another half a minute, and then we will get started if anybody else is joining. But we'll read quickly the tour again, and then go to the second piece of the Beis Yosef. All right, we're ready to start. So, HaMechazer achar davar liknoso, bein bekarka, bein metaltalid, ubo acher uknao, nikra Russia. We haven't yet really discussed, and we will see inside, what are the consequences of being a Russia? Okay, because we normally know that when we see the concept of Russia, it's a person who violates a Torah law and he's pasul le'edus. But we'll see that not likely that that's what we say here, but we'll have to see. We'll see that later when we get to the Nosei Kelim of the Shulchan Aruch. Kosav Rabbeinu Tam, duhu adin nami v'deschirus, im rotza liskor karka o metaltalin, o lahaskir atzmo, ubo acher ukadmo nikra Russia. This is also true in rentals and in rentals. And in jobs, in hiring. Avalimbo liskot behefker. This is the Rabbeinu Tam Shita. Avalimbo liskor behefker o lekabel matana me'echad. So a person's trying to get a hefker object or trying to convince somebody to give him something for free. Okay, so bo acher v'kadmo eno nikra Russia. Why not? According to Rabbeinu Tam, she'eno davar hamotzi lo b'makom acher. Normally what we do, the reason why, bo acher v'kadmo, we tell the second guy, why are you going here? You can go, there's lots of, you have other options. So that's good in a purchase, or in a job, but it's not so good in a hefker. You can't tell the guy, go find another metzia. Although remember, we did have Shitas Rashi, that even there he's called a Russia. Okay, we saw in the tour, in the Beis Yosef, and that was, we did the last piece in the Beis Yosef, Rabbeinu sasam dvar kedas Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, so that's where we are in the Beis Yosef, right before the base. We're going to the last little piece of the first Beis Yosef, where he says, "Umashakosa bein bekarka bein metaltalin." So where did we get the idea that it's true both in karka and in a computer store? Din hakarka mevur sham beuvdider of gidol. That's explicit that there's a din of ma'apet becharara when you're trying to buy land. That was the story in Kiddushin. The din hataltal, meaning a metaltalin, who nilmad miloshon. The scenario of Rav Gidol was in karka, but what was the loshon that Rav Yitzchak Nafcha gave? Ani HaMehapech b'charara. That's a metaltalin, and therefore the fact that the mashal is a metaltalin, who nilmad miloshon ani HaMehapech b'charara. The charara needed the tiltel. Who? And therefore, the din of Anei Mahapech B'charara is when somebody is trying to get metaltalin or somebody is trying to get karka, we have the same status, the same din. Okay, so now we get Beis. Kosvu HaTosfos Sham Al Divrei Rabbeinu Tam. Remember, Rabbeinu Tam was the one who limited the din of Anei Mahapech B'charara only to Divrei Masa Umatan, to Mecher, and he eliminated hefker things from the din. Mikan nirale Morena Arav Yitzchak. Also, this was the end of the Tosfos, and this is halacha lamaisa. But we're going to see whether it's exactly how limited or expansive this din is. So here's the scenario: Asr lemelamed. We have a rebbe walking around looking for a job. He's also lahaskir atzmo lebal habayit sheyesh lo melamed acher kol zman sham melamed beveso. So Ruvain is a melamed, he wants a job. and he comes to town and he sees that Shimon is a Rebbe by a Balabayit. So he wants to convince the Balabayit to let Shimon go and hire him. So it says he's Osir, Kolzman Shamelame Beveso. Sheme'achar Shuhu Sochur Sham, Yelech HaMelamed B'mokam Acher Lehistaker Sham. Then we're allowed to tell Reuven, the second Melamed, go find a job somewhere else. Im Lo Sheyomer Balabayit Ein Ritzon Lakev HaMelamed Shelo. Unless there's indication that the Balabayit isn't really so happy with Shimon the Melamed, and he's looking around. So then for sure Reuven's allowed to come in. I hear you're not so happy, I'm available. Okay, so this could have ramifications. We'll have to see when we get to the Shulchan Aruch. Is this limited to Melamdim because we're talking here about Limud Torah, or could it even apply to secretaries? Aval im socher balabayit melamed echad. Here's again where we could say maybe it's a melamed and it's made a same din or a different din for secretaries. Aval im socher balabayit melamed echad. So the balabayit has Shimon as his melamed. Yochel balabayit acher, a second balabayit, can come liskor also melamed atzmo. He can hire Shimon away from balabayit A. Ve'eno yochel lomer lo habalabayit, and the first balabayit cannot tell the second balabayit lech uschor melamed acher. Don't take my melamed. Go find a different melamed. Can you understand how the dynamic here could be also an HaMehapech b'charara, because balabayit A has his melamed, okay, and balabayit B wants to hire him away. So why can't balabayit A say to balabayit B, go find a different melamed? Just like when I'm trying to buy a piece of property, we tell the second guy, go find a different piece of property. You don't have to buy this piece of property because there's other pieces of property out there, and therefore we could also tell the Balabayit B, why are you taking away my Melamed? Go find a different Melamed, which would be, on the surface, it looks exactly like a structure of HaMehapech b'charara, but it's not. Said Tosas, why not? Why? The name Alei, because Balabayit B could say, Ein Ritzoni El Lizeh. It's not nothing, this kind of a Melamed isn't available anywhere else. So according to this, again, if we're going to extrapolate this to any job and not limit it to Limud Torah, and we will see when we get to the Shulchan Aruch that there may be an opinion that this is dafka specifically because of Limud Torah. But if not, so then somebody is allowed to say, I'm going to hire away your secretary because a secretary of that quality is not available anywhere else. What's the whole din of HaMehapech b'charara? We say to the second guy, why are you taking away something that the first guy's already working on? You could find the same thing somewhere else. But if you can't find it somewhere else, and that's Rabbeinu Tam's whole shita. That's why this is in the Rabbeinu Tam. And Tosas is building on Rabbeinu Tam's shita that in Hefker, there's no din of Nikra Rasha, because you can't tell the second guy, go find it somewhere else. So because the second guy is allowed to say, I can't find this somewhere else, because I certainly can't find a Hefker somewhere else. He would be allowed to say, I can't find this quality Melamed somewhere else. And by extrapolation, we might be able to say, I can't find this quality employee somewhere else. And therefore, it's not called HaMehapech b'charara if I pilch your employee. That seems to be, again, the only question is going to be whether it's only in Limud Torah or it's in every job. Questions still there? Okay, clear? Okay. Now we get to the Mordechai, if you remember. Because of Mordechai. Wait, you know what? Just a minute. No, okay, the rest we're going to see. Just a minute. No, I think at this point, we want to see the Prisha. We want to see the Prisha because it's going to come up in the Nosei Kelim of the Shulchan Aruch. So they're going to access this Prisha, so we want to see it. Before we get into the issue of the Mordechai, let's go and take a look at the Prisha. It's the very beginning. Go back to Aleph in the Prisha. Everybody has a Prisha in their tour? I think every edition has the Prisha somewhere or other in there. So it's Reish Lamed Zayin Aleph. Okay, this Prisha is going to give us background. Again, there's not going to be a lot of new things here. What we're going to do is bringing together all of the opinions that we saw in all of the Rishonim that were scattered all over the place. Okay, so I can start with the Prisha. HaMechazer achar davar liknoso ben karka ben metaltalin u'ba'achal liknodo nikra Russia, says the Prisha. Davar zebe kedushin reish perika omer Rav Gidel HaMehapech be'ahu ara ad. He quotes the whole Gemara. You say he's expecting you to look at the whole Gemara. Ad ani amach becharo v'achal menatal nikra Russia. So that's our Gemara. V'hinei midyamrina ani amach becharara shehi metaltalin. On the one hand, the uvda de Rav Gidel bekarka, so mishumachi because of Rabbeinu bein bekarka bein metaltalin. The dikdik because of, but now there's a dik in the lashon. Hamechazer achar davar liknoso dumya dehasa de kaomer HaMehapech dahainu adayin lo kana kinyan gomer. Meaning he's trying to buy it. The diuk here is that if a kinyan was made, then of course you're not allowed to do anything to try to undo the kinyan. Umiyu kosev amordechai beper cheskas de beinan shekvar gomer harishon pisuk hadamim v'lo chosro ki'im hakinyan. This was our Mordechai. That the only time this starts is after there was a final agreement between the buyer and the seller, and all we're missing is a kinyan. Avalim adayin enam mashvim yachad v'pisuk hadamim lo nikreach harasha im kidem v'kanaam. Okay, because the until they finished, you can't lock the seller in just because a buyer is negotiating. Okay, the ata noagim lifsok achiyotze bezeh shehu hasagas gevul. So the question is, at what point do we say that it's inappropriate? In other words, if you remember, we had this question of hasagas gvul. That really was the whole issue of the barei chaya when he comes in. Pasak de lechiyusi hasagas gvul. So is this called hasagas gvul? So the priest is going to explain to us why it's not called hasagas gvul. Meaning the default might have been that once we're in negotiations, you step in. That's hasagas gvul even before we reach the final price. Okay, but l'chora nir l'chalik. Okay, that you can't call it hasagas gvul. Why? The kishiba echad liknos davar mehasheni. All right, Reuven's coming to buy something from Shimon. Basically, we said the svara, but here the priest is going to lay it out very clearly why you have to agree with the Mordechai. You can't say that once Reuven is negotiating with Shimon to buy, that no one else is allowed to come in. Hasagas gvul. See, when I set up a grindstone, we could talk about hasagas gvul if you come and try to take away my customers, even though I don't have the customers yet. But here, Reuven is negotiating with Shimon. They haven't reached a conclusion. Okay, umichulakim bepisuk damim. So they're arguing over price. Ze omer kacheu b'shisha v'ze omer teneu derech mashal be'arba. So Reuven, Reuven wants to pay 4, and the seller says, "I want 5," and they're arguing. Umis asking bepisuko ze bepisuko ze lahosi v'ze ligroa. So Reuven, the buyer, he wants to get it down to 4, and Shimon, the seller, wants to get it up to 5, and they're arguing back and forth. Ululei shabash lishi hayu mushvim nafsham. And if the third guy wouldn't come in, they would have reached some kind of an agreement. Zem mikri gam ken hasagas gvul. That's called hasagas gvul because they're arguing about the price. V'hadu amru she'eno nikra hasagas gvul ad sheyu mushvim bepisuk damim. The Mordechai says it's not. Kishalokeach halach mehamocher v'omer lo eten yoter mizeh v'ayin darchei Moshe. We're going to see the darchei Moshe. I think we saw it last. I think we may have seen it at the end. So here's a very fine distinction. While Reuven and Shimon are arguing about price, Levi's not allowed to intervene. But if Reuven gets up and says, "Look, the most I'm giving is 4, and call me when you're ready to sell for 4," and he leaves, then Levi's allowed to come in. But it's interesting that he's limiting it when they're in actual negotiations. While they're in negotiations, it's called hasagas gvul because the assumption is that they will reach an agreement, and therefore it could be called hasagas gvul. this is probably a bit of a machlokus in the postscript. Was there a question about that? I saw a little discomfort there, or not? Everybody understands the difference, even though according to the Mordechai, the fact that the buyer knows that while I'm still negotiating, no one is allowed to step in, may tell him he's not going to leave the negotiations. But of course, the seller could. The seller could say, "Look, I'm not selling lower than 5. Call me when you're ready to give me 5." At that moment, of course, somebody can come in and offer 5. That's not called hasagas gvul. But while they're actually negotiating, it's called hasagas gvul to come in and try to take away the deal. That's what the
Rabbi Karlinsky, I believe the Gemara in Adarm says that if someone makes a neder that they're not going to go below a certain amount or go above a certain amount, it's not considered a real neder. So therefore, in that case, it could also say the same thing here. That when he said, "I'm not going below 5," he didn't really, that we still consider as if they're negotiating. That's just the way people negotiate.
As long as they're still in, again, that's the chiddush here of the Prisha, that as long as they're still in negotiations, it's hasagas gvul. That's the point. That, again, you got to pinpoint what the violation is. It's a violation of hasagas gvul. If there would be no isser of hasagas gvul, then it could be that there's no problem. But since there is such a concept called hasagas gvul, we're going to apply that here. But let's read on. Umashakosav Rabbeinu Nikra Rasha Ritzono Lomar. Okay, here's the first indication that we have of what are the consequences of Nikra Rasha. We never really said what that means. We know that in halachic terms, right, that a ganaf is pasal le'edus, a mochal Shabbos is pasal le'edus because he's a Rasha. Is that what we're going to say here? That the ani HaMehapech b'charara ubo acher v'nitka. We're going to say that the bo acher is pasal le'edus. That's a big stretch. So says the Prisha, Mashakosav Rabbeinu Nikra Rasha Ritzono Lomar Korin Oso Gamkein Bebeit HaKnesset. We announce in shul this guy's a Rasha. That's what it's an announcement. V'ayin b'darchei Moshe hatam mishum dahavele litroach liknot b'davar acher. Why are you a Rasha? Because hey, come on, go find it somewhere else. Okay. Let's just finish the Prisha. Mashakosav Rabbeinu Dehu Adim b'schirus hatam gamkein diyochel litroach liskor b'mokom acher. So when we talk here about rentals, we can talk not only purchase, we can talk, go find another place to rent it. Umashachiluk bein dvar hefker she'eno matzu bein dvarim haniknim oniskarim, i.e., financial transactions versus hefker. Ken kosva tosos v'arosham beperek haomer. They view raya. They prove their shita, of course. Me'odetan b'meseches pein nafal alo aleh upiras talito aleh. Mavino so mimeno, the famous. The kasha that Tosos asked on Rashi. The mashmer the also should not let me in a low mikri Rasha. Vaynu mishum the hefkeru the low Rashi v'Ramban. You remember the Ramban agrees with Rashi. The spherule she'en chiluk because the ahida pay a shiny mishum da kol chozer nacharea lizkos ba, and the Ramban refuted the raya. Rashi never talked about it. The Ramban defended Rashi and his position that you can't bring any raya from the paya, because the paya isn't Ruvain the ani HaMehapech b'charara and Shimon, somebody else coming and taking it, but Shimon who took it was an equal Mahapech, just like Ruvain was. And that's the way the Ramban defends Rashi. The other defense is a little more extreme and says that in fact the Gemara would consider the second ani a Rasha, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Kinyan. That's more of a teretz in the Nafal Alav on the Metzia, where the Gemara doesn't talk about whether he's a Rasha or not. It's a little harder to say that in Peah, because Peah, it says Ma'avirin also, which as we said in some of the other Rishonim, it sounds like it's a lekatchila that you can do it. Okay. Yeah, let's just go back. I think did we see the Darchei Moshe? We saw the first Darchei Moshe with the star. I'm not sure if we saw the second Darchei Moshe. We need to see it. Okay, because where's the Aleph? Where did it go? Oh, no, we didn't yet get there in the... No, I'm sorry. Okay, let's go back now to the Beis Yosef and see the Mordechai. The Beis Yosef. Now let's see how the Beis Yosef brings the Mordechai. Kosav Mordechai b'Perek Cheskas b'Shem Aram. Sheim Yisrael mechazer liknot v'kidem Yisrael achar v'kana eno nikra Rasha v'lo shayich ani HaMehapech b'charara el im kain sha Yisrael rishon gomar pisuk hadamim im hagoy. He's accessing the case of the non-Jew. Okay, he's making it into the non-Jew, but the din is exactly the same. V'lo hayu mechasrim rak kisivas hashtar v'halos be'erko shalahem ulevarer hamekach. Then the chihai gavna in kidem Shimon v'holach l'knoso nikra Russia. Meaning, the only time Shimon is called a Russia is when everything was finalized. The deal is the agreement is in place, and all they're missing is signing the contract. Avalim lo gomar Ruvain im hagoy, and again, that was because that was the case in the Gemara, but it's true in a Jew. V'dochek oso shema yozil lo hagoy. Ruvain is pressing. Maybe the goy will lower from 10,000 to 9,000. The kidem Shimon ukna'o, and Shimon steps in when Ruvain is trying to press for a cheaper price, and they did not yet come to an agreement on price. Lo mikri ani HaMehapech b'charara. Uvelokech b'shol nami lo mikri mahapech b'charara. Ela hecha de gomru hapisuk kvar halokech vehamocher v'nisratzu zeh lezeh v'lo hayu mechasrim rak hakinyan v'holach zeh v'kena'o o ba'osam damim o hosif damim. As nikra Russia. This was the Mordechai. Aval im hamocher eno rotze lemocher bekach v'holach acher v'kona. The seller says, look, right, I'm not selling for 9. I'm only selling for 10. When somebody comes in and gives him 10, lav Russia. Says the Darchei Moshe, just quickly jump to the Darchei Moshe, a couple of lines, that Aleph. The Imlokain, what's the logic why you can't call Levi a Russia when Reuven wants to give 9 and Shimon says, I only want to sell for 10. Okay, and Reuven's not ready to give 9, so they didn't agree on a price. And then Shimon and Levi comes in to buy it. How could you call Levi a Russia in Loken if you're going to call Levi a Russia? Mafsidin lemocher. Then the mocher is going to always lose. Shin yavo Ruven liknos karka. Ruven's going to come. He wants to buy the land that the seller wants for 10, and he's going to offer 9. Shuv lo yira acherashi liknosa. So once Ruven steps in to negotiate for 9, and you're going to tell me, well, now nobody's allowed to step in. Then Ruven can press the mocher for whatever Ruven wants to give. Umatsinu dechoshu rabbanan tuva litakanas hamochrim afilu mugoy. This is going to be that's a bit of a chiddush. It's brought down explicitly when we see the Nosei Kamel and Shulchan Aruch. You would have thought, well, wait a minute. There's a goy selling. He wants 10, and Ruven wants to give 9. And Shimon comes in. And he offers the goy 10. Well, if we wouldn't let that happen, what would happen? Then the goy would be stuck because no one's allowed to offer, no one's allowed to step in and give a better offer than Ruvain, and that would cost the goy money. And the chiddush is, even we were worried about the welfare of the non-Jew seller also. We can't compromise the welfare of the non-Jew. But remember, also, we're talking here, of course, in a system where the Jews are running the show. It's a halachic system. Okay, so we have a scenario where the non-Jew wants 10, the Jew is offering 9, and if you don't let Levi come in and buy it when they haven't agreed on a price, then you're always going to let the Jew press the goy down for the lower price, and we can't allow that to happen, even with the goy, kal v'chomer with the Jew. That's what it's saying here. We're worried about the loss of the seller, even if the seller is not a Jew. And again, it all comes back. The simple understanding is the whole din of Ani HaMehapech b'charara is a asisa yasher v'hatov, and we never activate asisa yasher v'hatov at the expense of a seller. We'll see that more. Well, we saw that already because of bar mitzvah, etc. Okay. Okay, so then let's just go back into the Beis Yosef. We'll finish it up with this. Because of Mordechai Perek Kama de Mitzia, Al Divrei Rabbeinu Tam v'chein Kosav Rabbeinu Meir, Ruven Shaya Mahapech b'charara shel Goy al Meitzar shel Shimon. Okay, so now we're going to tie it back to Bar Metzra. So here we go. So there is a piece of property for sale on the border of Shimon's property. Okay, so Shimon has property, and next door, okay, there's a property that belongs to a goy, okay, and somebody is trying to buy the property of a goy next door to Shimon's property. Okay, So that sounds like a perfect ani HaMehapech b'charara. Somebody's trying to buy the property of the goy, and no one's allowed to step in if they're in if they're in serious negotiations. So, but the karka is on the border of Shimon. V'kidem Shimon v'kana. Shimon stepped in. So if a third party would have stepped in, again, there's Shimon's property and the property of the goy, and Reuven is negotiating to buy the property of the goy. That should create an ani HaMehapech b'charara to not allow Levi to step in. But Shimon is allowed to step in. Why? Kidem Shimon v'kana, the lo mikri rasha. Shimon is not a rasha. Why? Dahavi kamo metzia. As far as Shimon is concerned, this property is not a metzia. You can't tell Shimon, well, why are you negotiating? Why are you mixing into this property? Go find a different property. The lav kol shaita is rami leliknos karka la metzia shalom. Because Shimon could say, listen, this is a unique opportunity that's not available anywhere else, and therefore we could apply the din of hefker like Rabbeinu Tam, and say this is not available, and therefore Shimon, if Levi would come in to try to buy the property when Reuven is negotiating with the goy, all right, so then it would certainly be called ani HaMehapech b'charara. But if Shimon, the Baal Metzer, intervenes, he's not called a Mahapech b'charara nikra rasha. Again, all of these things I think are very reasonable, but they need to be said so that we don't apply it in the wrong way.
Next question?
Yes, just 1 second. Okay, we still have to see one other thing in the Darkei Moshe, but first your question. Yes.
In the cases where we said that a person who's selling shouldn't be hurt. So he won't be hurt if he terminates the negotiations. If he says, like you said, come back to me when you're ready to give me 10. So I don't see why we have to defend him by saying, oh, they're negotiating between 9 and 10. That means no one can butt in and offer a higher price. So therefore the seller is hurt. We had an answer to that. We said the seller is allowed to say, I'm done with the negotiations. Come to me if you want to pay 10.
But what if he doesn't say that? What if they're still that's the point. If they're still negotiating, but they haven't finalized. See, so according to the Mordechai, I would be allowed to step in. But if we apply the idea of hasagas gvul, so then I might not be allowed to step in. All right, that's what it's saying here. Where is it here? Right. So where did I have it here? Okay. Where the question is, do we say hasagas gvul is a violation? Okay. Then it could be that as long as they're still negotiating, there's a problem of hasagas gvul. That's the gray area.
Right. I think I was only commenting on the lichora need to protect the seller. It seems to me like we don't need to protect the seller because the seller has the ability to say enough with these negotiations. I don't want to negotiate with someone who only wants to give me 9. Come to me when you want to give me 10. And that's the end. At that point, Levi or anyone else is able to come in and not likare Russia.
No, but Reuven, but Reuven's trying to keep Levi out. Reuven's when he sees that Reuven's trying to step in, he right away calls out, Russia, you're not allowed to do it. I'm still negotiating.
But then the seller can say, I don't want to. Fine, I'm done with these negotiations.
Yeah. So no, if the seller says that explicitly, there's no problem. But what happens if the seller doesn't? The seller didn't say that. The seller is still, he didn't walk away.
Got it, I understand.
And Reuven wants to stop Levi from intervening. Okay, so the chiddush is that then Reuven cannot stop Levi from intervening, because if we would allow Reuven to stop Levi from intervening, it could be very unbeknownst to the mocher's rights are going to be compromised. There's no question that if the mocher knows everything that's going on, he doesn't need our protection if he knows everything that's going on. In general, when we talk about protecting, we're protecting because they either are powerless or they don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Reuven wants to render the seller powerless to sell to Levi by activating ani HaMehapech b'charara Levi. You're going to be a Russia. You can't walk in the door.
Got it.
Can't enter a bid. Not allowing Levi to enter a bid, that's a protection for the seller when the seller doesn't know what's happening. Of course, the seller could walk away, okay? But then he doesn't need our protection. That was a good question, though. Okay, let's just take a quick look at the last Darchei Moshe. Okay, it's at the end. It's the end. Kosav Morena Rav Kohen B'Tshuvosav. Bayit Lamed Aleph. Di mechazer echad achar davar echad liknos. Reuben's trying to buy something. Ubo achar v'kna'o yoser bizol. So, how about if it's a sale item, okay? That she'eno motze b'mokom achar liknot kach. Meaning, Reuben's trying to buy something, and Shimon steps in and is able to negotiate a real a discount price. So then, kavi kamo mitzia. Then Shimon's okay because he could say I wouldn't be able to get this at a discount price somewhere else. V'chein mashba b'mordechai perka omer. The dafka kodem shigia liyad Yisrael shigia liyado zachav amotzi mimeno havi kamo gazlan. I'm not sure why that needed to even be said. Apparently, there was some gray area here that would have maybe opened the door for the second guy to try to get the deal reversed. Okay, that's basically what we needed from the tour Beis Yosef, and now we need to go over to the real Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Give everybody a chance to get a real Shulchan Aruch open. And again, it's a real Shulchan Aruch, Reish Lamed Zayin in Hoshen Mishpat. Yeah, a lot of interesting little things we're going to see. I'm assuming everybody has a regular Hoshen Mishpat with a Sma and with a Be'er Heitev and a Piskei Tshuva and a Gra. And a Nesivos, believe it or not. We're going to see a little bit of a Nesivos also. I don't know if we're going to get to that today, but we will. And then I'm going to send you a printout of the Piskei Tshuva. You have it in your Shulchan Aruch, and in theory, you don't need me to do that. But it's for me also. The Piskei Tshuva is so small, and it's so important that I'm going to send you a document with the Piskei Tshuva printed out, at least the parts that are going to be relevant to us. And I'll probably by Sunday also have a Tshuvas Chatam Sofer that is very important, and it's mentioned already in the Piskei Tshuva. Okay, so let's go to Reish Lamed Zayin. Let's start from the beginning. You'll recognize this because, as usual, the Shulchan Aruch frequently just quotes the language of the Torah. Hamachazer achar davar liknoso, o lisach or lisachro, bein karka bein metaltalin. Ubo acher ukenao nikra rasha. V'hu adin lerotze lahaskir atzmo, meaning a guy wants to get a job. He's going and applying for a job. Eitzel acher. Then you also are not allowed to step in and take the job when he's trying to get the job. Because we say, there's lots of jobs out there. Go find a different job. Don't take away this guy's job. The yesh omrim, shein bo liskot behefker, o mekabel matana. You'll notice it's a yesh omrim, okay? Because the language in the Gemara doesn't make that distinction. Okay, but yesh omrim, shein bo liskot behefker, o mekabel matana, me'acher, ubo acher v'kodmo, eino nikra rasha. Why? Kiven she'eino davar hamotzui lo b'mokom acher. That's the svara of the Rabbeinu Tam. You can't tell me that I'm a Rasha if it's not available somewhere else. If it's available somewhere else, you can tell me I'm a Rasha for stepping in. But if it's not, I'm not a Rasha. That's the basic mechaber. So already I want to see the. We'll start with the Sma. We're going to start with the Sma. Aleph Bays, and we're going to do Aleph and Bays. So Aleph Nikra Rasha. Everybody see where I am in the Sma. It's Sivkot and Aleph. Nikra Rasha, umachrizan Allah bebeit hakneset, she'asa ma'aseh resha kazeh. So it sounds like the consequences of being a Rasha in this context is that they're going to announce when you get to shul, right? And you want to go to the Amud, they're going to give a clap and say, no, this guy, we don't let this guy daven for the Amud. He's a Rasha. Okay, he wants an Aliyah. We say, no, we don't give these guys Aliyahs. Okay, he's a Rasha.
Could we be medayik that says that it's Sha'asa Maisa Russia as opposed to like someone who's
Resha Kazeh? Yeah, we have to say why we're calling him a Russia. Yes, we have to say that
he did because he did a one-time thing as opposed to someone who's Pasal Edus, who's a Machal Shabbos or is Masakin Bakuvia.
No, No. You're making it into a quantitative thing, and it's not. It's a qualitative thing. Even if the guy, no. He's a Russia because he did this, and we announce it. No more than that. The idea is he's not Pusalatus. He's not Pusalatus. That's clearly what again, we're going to see when we get a little deeper into the later poskim, whether there's a possibility that he could be Pusalatus. There's a possibility, but we'll see. Okay, Beis. Kivan she'eno. He's quoting. Now he's giving the reason for the Rabbeinu Tam. Kivan she'eno davar hamatzui. When you have a davar shel hefker or a matana, so the reason why you're not called a rasha is eno matzui. Mashe'en kein kishebal liknos davar di yachol lehishtadel liknoso gam b'mokom acher. But if we're talking about buying a piece of property, buying a car. So I'm negotiating for the car. There's lots of cars out there. Don't step in to buy this car. By the way, we're going to have this is going to be one of Rav Moshe Feinstein's chuvas, where a guy bought a car, was supposed to. I'll just give you the scenario. Okay, Reuven's in the car lot, and he likes the car, and he agrees with the seller on a price. Okay, and he says, "I'm coming tomorrow with the money," and that's in the morning. In the afternoon, Levi comes onto the car lot, sees the car, likes it, and gives the seller cash. Reuven comes the next morning. Where's my car? I sold it to Shimon. That's Rav Moshe Feinstein's. That's going to be a shaila. Rav Moshe Feinstein is going to have a whole tshuva whether there's an HaMehapech B'charora there for two reasons. A, is that called HaMehapech B'charora? And B, he didn't know. That's Rav Gil. Okay, so I'm just showing you that that's going to be an issue, and that's alluded to here. You can buy a car in another place. Of course, you said, I want to buy it here. You can say, no, go find it somewhere else. Okay, I'm sure that this was when we talked about real estate deals. Okay, Reuven is negotiating for a real estate deal, and Shimon wants to do the deal, and we say, no, go find a deal somewhere else. Well, finding a deal somewhere else, I got to do a lot more research. That's tircha. Tircha, we say yes, be matriach, not to upset the deal with the first guy. So what does Rashi hold? Why does Rashi say that even in hefker, where I can't tell you, go get it somewhere else, why are you called a rasha? Reuven is already working to get it, and he's there, he's standing there ready, he wants to get it from the Balabayit. Hare ze hasheni. That's already not how we explained Rashi. That's not the lashon of Rashi. The lashon of Rashi is that he's yored l'chayev shel chavero. Here we're making it a little sharper. We're saying that, hey, you're standing there ready to get it. You know what? It's as if he almost got it. The ayin pri shasham shekatafti tam sheni hadeos demar midame lezel lepeya. Shehi hefker ubo acher v'nofal aleo de masnis ditnan de harishus lasheni lovo lidchoso mimenu kol zman shelo notlo biyodo. That is why peya is not a good example. Umar machalik de shiny peya de chol aniyim mehadrim achareim lizkos ba mashe'en kein davar hefker umatana. So again, the question is whether we have a raya from Peah that a davar shel hefker, there's no rights to the first guy, or we say it's a unique thing in Peah because everybody's trying to get it, and therefore you're allowed to take him away. But in a regular davar shel hefker, then there would be a HaMehapech B'charora. You would not be allowed to take him away. Because, and again, the Sma's making it sound more like the Shita of Rashi is, since he's already there, it's as if he almost got it. It's not what Rashi says in Rashi, but there could be other explanations for Shita's Rashi Ramban, because it's also the Ramban, that it's more an inappropriate thing, even if it's hefker. Yeah, you're right, I can't get it anywhere. You can't get it anywhere else. But you know what? This guy has already almost got it. Lo beseder. It's lo beseder. Okay, and again, we're going to open the door here for the difference between an ani and an usher. Also, now sometimes we tell the second guy, leave him alone. Go do it somewhere else. Go get it somewhere else. Okay, you can't get it somewhere else. You'll live without it. You'll live without it. You can't get it somewhere else. You'll live without it. You've got to realize here that this is a very gray area where we're trying to do a midos musar action also. Asisa yasher v'hatov. I can imagine applying asisa yasher v'hatov even if Shimon can't get it somewhere else. It's a davar shel hefker, and Shimon can't get it anywhere else. And Reuven's about to get it. I don't think it's unreasonable for someone doing that. This is Shitas Rashi. It's not unreasonable for somebody to come in and say, Shimon, leave it alone. Let go. You're right. You can't get it somewhere else. You know what? You'll live without it. You'll live without it. Okay? And that may be the opening to make a distinction whether the first guy is an ani or an usher. That also may a difference. But Shitas Rashi, according to the Sma, sounds like he's almost got it. Let go. And don't mix it, and don't take it away from him. Okay, so that is the Sma. Let's go. Okay, one second. What else did we want to see from this? No. Okay, that is yes. Okay, that's all we need for now. Okay, the Pischei Tshuva we're going to have to see later. There's a big Pischei Tshuva, but we're going to see it later. Okay, let's go back now into the Ramah. So this was the Mechaber. Okay. The Hakone Karka al Meitzar Chavero. We had this was at the very end that we saw in the Darchei Moshe, right? The Hakone Karka al Meitzar Chavero. So again, remember what we had. We had Shimon with a piece of property, and his neighbor is selling the property next to him. Afal pi she'ein ba mishum dina de bar metzra. And there may not be a dinner de bar metzra, yochol bala meitzar liknosa velo mikri rasha. Meaning, if there's a dinner de bar metzra, so of course there's nothing to talk about. But there were many conditions where we don't apply dinner de bar metzra. So the buyer is coming to buy the property where if he would buy it. You would the Shimon the Baal Metzra would not be able to get him out. There were many conditions. Why is the seller selling? Okay, there were many conditions where the buyer is insulated from Bar Metzra. So they're negotiating. But before the deal is finished, if Shimon, the owner of the adjacent property, buys it out, like swoops in and gets it away from the buyer, he's not called a Rasha. That's we don't apply the Boach of Anotla Nikra Rasha. Dahave Kimitziyah. Because as far as Shimon is concerned, this property is like a mitzvah. You can't tell me go find it somewhere else. And therefore, according to everybody, even if there would be a dinner de bar metzra, there's nothing to talk about. Because if the buyer buys it, Shimon just comes and gives him the money and sends him packing. All right. But what happens if there's no dinner de bar metzra? And if the guy will end up actually making a kinyan, then Shimon won't be able to do anything about it because he's insulated from bar mitzvah. As long as Shimon gets there before the deal is concluded, he can swoop in, buy it, and he's not called a Rasha because it's mamish like a mitzvah. Okay. V'chein im kone davar echad ubo chavero v'yucha liknoso bizol. What if the second guy can get it cheaper? Right, Reuven is negotiating to buy something, and Shimon comes in because he can get a good deal from the seller. Then Eno Motzeh liknoso kach b'mokam acher. He can't get this good deal somewhere else. Maybe the seller is his friend. He's able to come in and buy it cheap, which is not available anywhere else. Have kamo mitzia the yochel liknoso calls man shelo zacha b'hakona. As long as the buyer has not actually made a kinyan, there's no dinner de bar metzra. Again, this will be according to. Tosfos, that there's no dinner de bar metzra on something of hefker. The yesh omrim de lo shna. We'll see what that means now. So let's stop here and go now into some of the nosei kelim. All right. So there is a gimel, and where is the gimel? The gimel sends us to. I got it all marked up here, but it's. No, come on. Where do I have it? Okay, look at the hay. Look at the hay and the sma. The havikim. All right, remember, we're talking here now about the Shimon who is going to swoop in and buy property that already somebody else is negotiating for. The havikim etzia. Denicha le'la'adam liot sadosav etzel zeh. v'tov l'kama inyanim. Okay, and that's why there's no dinner. That's why there's no dinner of mahapech b'charara. Okay, and then we said, yeah, I'm sorry, we didn't get there yet. I'm just looking. Where is this? Okay. All right. I guess so. Let's read on then, and we'll pick it up in a minute. Let's read on in the Ramah. Usvara Rishona Nira Iker. So the first thing is the Ramah paskins like Tosfos, not like Rashi. That's the Svara Rishona. Okay, is that again? It was more as a Yesh Omrim that in Bala Liskos Behefker. It's not called a Russia. The Tur and the Beis Yosef, the Tur and the Mechaber, they all hold that it's only in a purchase but not in Hefker. That's Svara. That's what he means is that the Svara Rishona Iker. The Afilu L'Svara Zu, meaning the Svara Rishona, that there's again the Svara Rishona means there's no bar metzra, there's no nikra Russia. If what Reuven's trying to do is a davar shel hefker, Shimon can step in, and he's not a Russian. Shimon can step in if it's a davar shel hefker, and he's not called a Russian. So now there's going to be a huge limitation on this. We talked about it a little bit when we saw some of the Rishonim, and here it's brought down explicitly. Afilu l'svara zu dafka be'ani, aval be'asher lo, imba lo she'eno matsui. So what does it mean an ashir? So we saw this in the Rishonim. An ashir is trying to get something, okay, and it's hefker. But even if you hold that in hefker there's no ani HaMehapech b'charara, if the usher is trying to get it and somebody else comes and takes it away, as long as he hasn't yet made a kinyan, it's not viewed so seriously. Why not? Because the usher, if he doesn't have it, you know what? You're an usher. You didn't get this. You can get somewhere else. Okay? And therefore, even in a davar shel hefker, remember, you're an usher. What do you want? You want a freebie. A davar shel hefker means a freebie. So as an usher, we say, you know what? You can do without the freebie. And therefore, you're not called a rusher if somebody steps in and takes it away from the usher. Again, as long as the usher hasn't made a kinyan yet. But let's just read a little bit more on that. Where I lost my place here. Dafka ba'ani aval ba'ashir lo im lo she'eno matzui da'az afilu ba'ashir mikre rasha. Oh, so he's saying like this, that if it's something that is not available even to the ashir, then we could say he is nikra rasha. Whereas if it's something else that is available, we tell the first guy who's an ashir. See, normally what do we say when it's available somewhere else? We say it's available somewhere else in a mecher. So Reuven is trying to buy something that's right, and Shimon comes in, and we tell Shimon it's available somewhere else. Leave him alone, because Reuven's already there. But here it's the opposite. Since Reuven is an ashir and it is available somewhere else, and he hasn't yet made a kinyan, if Shimon steps in, we say to the usher, it's not so bad. You got money, go find it somewhere. You can find it somewhere else because it's available somewhere else. But if it's a freebie, according to this, then even the usher is allowed to say, I'm very sorry, you can't tell me go find it somewhere else. Okay? Okay. So let's see a few commentaries on that. Let's just finish up here. So you'll see. Kolze lo mikri ela kishikvar pasku hadamim beinehem ve'ein mechusrim ela kinyan. Again, he brings in the Mordechai. Obviously, the whole thing doesn't apply if they're still in negotiations. Okay. So now we have to see a few of the commentaries. So the first thing we want to see is, here we saw Vav. Look at Vav in the Sma. Look at Vav in the Sma. Okay, what did it say there? Afilu l'svara. Let's just remember what the Ramah said. Where's it here? The afilu l'svara zu dafke ba'ani aval ba'asher lo. So he's going to now explain why there's a difference between an ani and an asher. Pirush l'svara zu ha'achrona. Here he's explaining why we're going to make a difference between an ani and an asher. L'svara zu ha'achrona disfira le. Diafilu b'mitzia v'hefker v'kiyotze ba nikra rasha. That according to Rashi, where in hefker you're also called a rasha because we say, why are you mixing in to the first guy even though you can't find it somewhere else? Modim de'im zeh haba lizkot o liknot tchila have asher. Either the first guy or the second guy is an asher. Ubo acher lito. I'm sorry, we're talking about the first guy. De'im zeh haba lizkot, the first guy. He comes to get the hefker or buy the property. Have asher. Ubo acher lito milafanav, and somebody steps in. So Reuven the usher is trying to buy a property or get hefker, okay? And Shimon steps in, right? Lito milafanav hein davar hefker oshar dvarim anikni b'matana, where normally in a hefker we say that you're not called a rasha. Eino nikra rasha bekach, even according to the Shita. Okay, Eino nikra rasha bekach. I'm sorry. Even according to Rashi, I got it backwards. Even according to Rashi, that in hefker we do say that the second guy is a rasha. If the first guy is an ashir, so then Eino nikra rasha. The second guy is not a rasha. Why? Kiva da'dayin lo zachaba legamri. The first guy didn't make a kinyan. The first guy who's the ashir, he didn't yet make a kinyan. And again, we're in a davar shel hefker. According to Shita's Rashi, where you should be called a rasha. If the first guy is an usher, it's not a rasha. V'yuchal liishtadel inyan kazeh mimokam acher. Since we could say to the usher, you know what, you'll find a way to get this from somewhere else also. But of course you have to pay for it. It's hefker. The usher wants it free, and the second guy steps in and gets it. According to Rashi, he should have been a rasha. He's not a rasha because we tell the usher, you know what, you could find it somewhere else. I'm going to have to pay for it. Here it's free, I'm going to have to pay for it. If you're an usher, we say you can afford it. Okay? Unless the usher can't get it somewhere else. Afilu b'damim. It's not available. Now, if it's a one-of-a-kind thing, then you can't tell them, go spend your money somewhere else because it's not available. But if it's only a question of money, we say to the usher, since you didn't make a kinyan in it, again, we're not telling the second guy, a yasher koyach, he did a great thing. All we're saying is he's insulated from being called a rasha. If it's not available anywhere else, so then the usher is no different than the ani. It's not available. V'kasher katafti ubiarti divrei moram haran b'shem Ramban behedya ve'eviu habeis Yosef ayin sham. So again, let's just summarize, and with this, I think we'll leave it for today. We'll summarize. No, we have another couple of minutes, but let's summarize. So again, in Shita's Rashi, in the Shita's Tosfos, anytime we talk about a hefker thing which is not available somewhere else, then we don't talk about Nikra Rasha. It's not there's no such thing as the second guy being a Nikra Rasha because because the second guy could say, I can't get this somewhere else. But according to Rashi, where it's a Dover Shel Hefker and he can't get it somewhere else, so we still say, I'm sorry, he was there first, don't mix in. But now we have this distinction that if the first guy is an usher and it's available to the usher somewhere else, so then we allow the second guy to step in, since even according to Rashi, since it's not available anywhere else, and the usher can get it somewhere else, so then we don't apply the din of Rashi. And as what we're doing is, we're getting Rashi a little closer to Tosfos, okay? Where we're giving the second guy a little more rights and taking away some rights from the usher to be insulated. But again, it's because the usher is not being compromised so much, as opposed to if it's not available anywhere else to the usher, it's a one-of-a-kind deal. And again, it could very well be that in many real estate deals, or it isn't available anywhere else. And this is exactly where it becomes a very gray area. Okay, but that's the chiddush here, is the distinction between an ani and an usher in Shitas Rashi. Are there questions on that?
In the case of the Malamed, where he takes away the Malamed, we're saying because the second guy couldn't find the same quality Malamed anywhere else, then we're going to allow him to do it. That's the same principle?
Yes, but let's not get that mixed up, okay? They could stand discreetly, okay? But you're not. It's not wrong what you said, but I think it's more. That just makes it more confusing rather than more clarification. Okay. Anybody else have anything to say about this? Daniel, Ephraim, how does this resonate with you guys?
I think it was fine because, as you pointed out also with the Meitzar a few months ago, that all the rabbis are doing is limiting the extent that we're giving some people protection. In other words, like the Meitzar is like, wow, this is like an incredible thing. And here also, it's an incredible thing. You didn't even make a kinyan, and you can still own the thing and effectively stop someone else from getting. So what we're doing is we're saying, oh, you know what? That doesn't apply as often as you might have thought. But it's fine. It's not like we're taking away anything from someone who deserves anything. He didn't make a kinyan on it.
And again, and it's in this Shittas Rashi, where Rashi makes the chiddush of Ani HaMehapech b'Charora much bigger. Okay? The Rashi says, even in a davar shel hefker, the second guy is out. And that's a big chiddush. That the first guy has rights to keep the second guy out, even though the second guy has no way to get it anywhere else. See, according to Tosfos, the only time we keep the second guy out is when, hey, mister, why are you muscling into the first guy? You can get the same thing somewhere else. It's tircha, but it's available. But in Hefker, it's not available, and therefore there's no such din. The din doesn't apply. Okay? Because it's, again, especially if you understand it's Asisha Yosher Vatov, that's very nice as long as it's not at somebody else's expense. But the minute you lock the second guy out from a davar shel hefker, it's really at his expense because the first guy has no technical rights on it. Whereas according to Rashi, the fact that he's involved in it gives him a certain sense of protection. Okay? But you know what? And this is the usher doesn't need that kind of protection if the only thing he needs to do is spend some money as opposed to getting it to hefker. Okay? Again, I mean, it is a double standard. Definitely a double standard. We're saying somebody who can afford it, you know what? You can afford it. Don't make such a big deal. As opposed to the average person, we're allowed to say it's a freebie. Okay, even though I don't know, I think that the research of the economist shows that everybody likes a freebie. Even a guy who doesn't need the freebie likes a freebie. The halacha says, you know what? There's a difference. Okay, we're going to pick it up next time. I'll also send the Piskei Tshuva because it's a long Piskei Tshuva that we need to see. So let's have a Shulchan Aruch to finish up the Nosei Kalim Piskei Tshuva, and I'll try to get the Hatam Sofer out in case we get to it already next time. Seder. So I'll see everybody Sunday. Bezrat Hashem. Kol Tuv.